My name is Lauren Andrews. I'm 54 years old, and 3 days ago, my stepdaughter told me I wasn't allowed at her wedding. The wedding I paid for, the one in my backyard. The villain in this story isn't a stranger. It's a woman named Francesca, the biological mother who walked out when Phoebe was 4 years old and didn't send a single birthday card for 14 years. And now she's about to sit in the seat I earned. Stay with me, because what they did to me and what I did back is going to make your blood run cold. If you've ever been replaced by someone who didn't do the work, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is for you. I run a small interior design firm here in Charleston. 26 years in business, my name on the door, my hands calloused from 26 years of hauling fabric samples and furniture across 3 counties. I'm not flashy. I drive a 10-year-old Lexus and I wear the same 3 blazers in rotation. But I built something. A house on James Island worth $610,000 paid off, a business account with $340,000 sitting in it, a retirement fund I never touched, even when times were lean. I married Phoebe's father, Carlos, when she was 9. Francesca had been gone 5 years by then, walked out on both of them with a duffel bag and a guy from her gym, never looked back. Carlos was a wreck. Phoebe wet the bed until she was 11. I sat with her every night. I learned to braid hair from YouTube videos because Carlos didn't know how. I took her to dance recitals, helped her cheat through algebra homework I didn't understand myself, sat in the ER twice, once for a broken arm, once for a concussion from cheer practice. Carlos passed 4 years ago, heart attack at 51. After that, it was just me and Phoebe. I paid for her last 2 years of college out of pocket. I paid for her car. I paid for the down payment on her condo. And when she got engaged to her fiancé Sebastian, I told her without blinking that I'd pay for the wedding. All of it. $52,000, give or take. My gift to the only child I ever raised. 3 weeks ago, Francesca resurfaced, sent Phoebe a message out of nowhere. Sober now, she said, healed now, ready to be a mother again. And Phoebe, God help her, let that woman back into her life like she'd never left. I found out where I stood on a Tuesday morning. I was at my kitchen table going through the final seating chart Phoebe had sent me to approve. Standard stuff. Head table, family table. I scrolled to the bottom looking for my name. Table 11, next to the DJ booth, next to the speakers, next to 2 of Sebastian's college roommates I'd never met. I called Phoebe. She picked up on the 4th ring, sounding annoyed before I even said anything. Phoebe, why am I at table 11? There was a pause. Then she said it, flat, like she'd rehearsed it. Francesca's going to be at the head table, Lauren. It's my mom. It makes more sense for the photos. Lauren, not mom? She hasn't called me mom since she started talking to that woman again. I raised you, I said. I was in the delivery room when you got your tonsils out. I taught you to drive in a church parking lot. Where exactly does Francesca fit at the head table? She's trying, okay? She's trying to make up for lost time. Can't you just be the bigger person for one day? I sat there holding the phone, looking at the seating chart, at my own name shoved next to the speakers like an afterthought nobody wanted to look at directly. And that's when something in my chest went very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before you stop asking and start acting. I hung up without saying goodbye. I opened my laptop to check the wedding budget spreadsheet I'd shared with Phoebe so she could track vendor payments. The number at the bottom was wrong, way wrong. $52,000 had become $31,000 remaining, and the last 3 withdrawals weren't vendor payments at all. They were transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Cash that should have gone to my florist had gone somewhere else entirely. And right under the most recent withdrawal, in the notes field, in Phoebe's handwriting, were 3 words that turned my stomach to ice. Mom needs this. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open until 2 a.m., going line by line through every withdrawal from the wedding account I'd funded myself. $4,200 to a name I didn't recognize, then $6,000 more 2 weeks later, then $3,500, all of it tagged with the same 3 words: Mom needs this. I called my bank first thing in the morning and asked for a printed statement, the full history, every transaction going back 6 months. Then I drove to Mount Pleasant, to the only person I trusted to make sense of it all, my accountant, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Nora, who'd done my books for 15 years. Nora laid the statements across her desk and went quiet for a long minute, tracing the transfers with her pen. "Lauren, this isn't wedding spending. This is a payment plan. Look, same amount, same day of the month going back 4 months, before the wedding planning even started." 4 months. Francesca had been back in Phoebe's life for 3 weeks, or so I'd been told. "She lied to me," I said out loud, mostly to myself. "Phoebe told me Francesca just showed up. This says she's been taking money since February." Nora pulled up the routing number and ran it against a database she used for client fraud cases. It took her 4 minutes to land on a name: Francesca Reyes, a checking account at a credit union in North Charleston, opened in January, 1 month before the first transfer went out. That's when Nora found the second thing. Hidden in a folder Phoebe had shared with me months ago for wedding planning, she'd said, was a document neither of us had been meant to see. A notarized power of attorney form. My name was on it. Phoebe's signature was on it. The date was 3 weeks old. It granted Phoebe authority to manage my financial accounts in the event I was, in the document's words, deemed incapacitated. "I am 54 years old. I run a business. I drove myself here. I have never once shown a single sign of incapacity in my entire life." "Lauren," Nora said carefully, sliding the document toward me, "this is the kind of paperwork people file right before they try to take control of someone's assets. Sometimes it's legitimate. Sometimes it's the first step to something else." I thought about the seating chart, table 11 next to the speakers. I thought about Francesca, back for 3 weeks, suddenly entitled to a seat at the head table of a wedding she had nothing to do with. And I thought about my own stepdaughter's handwriting under a withdrawal that funneled my money to the woman who abandoned her. 3 words that weren't an explanation, they were a justification she'd already made peace with. I drove home with the documents in a folder on my passenger seat. My phone buzzed twice. Phoebe, asking if I'd approve the final floral order. I didn't answer either text. Instead, I called Sebastian, Phoebe's fiancé, the one person in this entire wedding who'd always treated me like family instead of a checkbook. He picked up on the first ring. "Lauren, hey, is everything okay?" "Sebastian, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you know anything about Francesca having access to my accounts?" The silence on the other end lasted just a beat too long. "Lauren," he said slowly, "I think you need to sit down before I tell you what I overheard at the rehearsal dinner planning call last week." I gripped the steering wheel and pulled into a gas station parking lot off Folly Road because whatever Sebastian was about to tell me, I didn't want to be driving when I heard it. "Tell me," I said. "Last week, Phoebe was on a call with Francesca in the kitchen, thought I was in the shower," Sebastian said. "I heard her say, 'Once Lauren signs the POA for emergencies, we can move the rest before she figures it out.'
I didn't know what POA meant until just now when you said it. I sat there with the phone against my ear, watching a man pump gas into a pickup truck like the world hadn't just tilted sideways. "There's more," he said, and his voice cracked a little. Francesca told her the real plan wasn't the wedding money. She said, and I'm quoting her exactly, "The wedding's a drop in the bucket. The real money's in her retirement account and the house. We get her to sign over financial power now while everyone thinks it's about the wedding, and we clean the rest out after." I didn't say anything for a long time. "Lauren, are you there?" "I'm here," I said. "Sebastian, does Phoebe know you heard this?" "No. And Lauren, I love her, I do, but I'm not marrying into whatever this is, not if it's true." I thanked him, hung up, and sat in that parking lot for 15 minutes doing the only thing that made sense to a woman who builds things for a living. I made a plan. First call was to my actual attorney, a sharp old litigator named Carlos Mendez, no relation to my late husband, just a coincidence of names I'd laughed about for years. I told him everything, the transfers, the POA, the phone call Sebastian overheard. "Lauren, first thing tomorrow morning, we're filing to revoke that power of attorney and freeze your accounts pending review. Second thing, do not confront Phoebe yet. Let her think she's still winning. The minute she knows you're onto her, she'll panic and destroy evidence." That advice cost me everything I had left to give. Every instinct in me wanted to drive straight to Phoebe's condo and put that bank statement on her kitchen counter. But I'd spent 18 years teaching that girl patience, and for once in my life, I used some of it on myself. The next morning, I went to my bank in person and revoked every authorization on every account. I moved my retirement funds into a new account at a different institution entirely, one with no trace back to my old bank's records yet. I called the title company that held my house deed and asked what it would take to add a protective trust, something that would make the house untouchable by any future claim, including power of attorney. By Thursday afternoon, every dollar Francesca and Phoebe thought they had access to was gone, moved, locked, untouchable. I still had to go to the rehearsal dinner that night. I'd RSVP'd weeks ago, and Carlos Mendez told me to act completely normal, smile, eat the chicken, say nothing. I walked into that restaurant downtown Charleston wearing the green dress Phoebe had once told me was her favorite on me. Francesca was already seated at the head of the table, holding court, telling some story about a spiritual retreat in Sedona like she hadn't spent 14 years invisible. She looked up when I walked in, smiled at me, this thin, practiced smile, like she was sizing up furniture she planned to repossess. "Lauren," she said sweetly, loud enough for the table to hear, "we were just talking about how grateful we all are that you're being so understanding about the seating. It really shows what kind of woman you are." I smiled back. It really does. Phoebe wouldn't meet my eyes the entire dinner, not once. But Francesca couldn't stop watching me, like she already knew something I didn't. After dessert, while I was getting my coat from the hostess stand, Francesca followed me to the door. She leaned in close, voice low enough that only I could hear it. "You know, Phoebe told me everything you've done for her. The college, the condo, all of it. It's sweet, really." She paused, smile never moving. But blood finds its way back eventually, Lauren. It always does. You should ask yourself how much more you're willing to give away before you finally understand that. She walked back to the table before I could answer. And I stood there, in that doorway, with my coat half on, realizing she wasn't talking about the wedding at all.
The wedding was set at noon on my own backyard on Jane's Island. I'd spent 3 weekends getting that yard ready myself. String lights, rented arches, a aisle runner I'd ironed by hand the night before. Whatever else was true, I still loved that girl, even while I was protecting myself from her. I woke up at 6 a.m. to a phone call from Carlos Mendez. "Lauren, I need you to see something before you go over there," he said. "My paralegal pulled the county filings this morning, just routine, checking nothing else had moved. Lauren, your house, someone filed a quitclaim deed request yesterday afternoon, notarized. It's not processed yet, but it's in the queue." "A quitclaim deed," I repeated, "on my house, listing Phoebe as grantee. Lauren, this isn't something that happens by accident. Someone forged or coerced a signature, or they're attempting to file based on that power of attorney you already revoked, except the timestamp on this filing is from before your revocation went through. They tried to beat the clock." My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. I'd moved past fear 3 days ago in that gas station parking lot. "Can they still do it?" "No, your revocation processed Wednesday morning. This filing came in Wednesday afternoon. We caught it by hours, Lauren, hours." I sat on the edge of my bed in my robe, looking at the wedding dress I'd bought to wear as the mother of the bride hanging on my closet door. Blue, modest, the kind of dress you wear when you still believe you're going to be treated like family. I put it on anyway, because I wasn't done yet, and I wanted Phoebe to look me in the eye one more time before everything came apart. The ceremony went exactly as the seating chart promised. Francesca sat at the head table in a dress that cost more than my florist's final invoice. I sat at table 11 next to 2 of Sebastian's groomsmen, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable on my behalf and kept refilling my wine. Sebastian found me during the cocktail hour, pulling me aside near the fence line, away from the crowd. "I'm calling it off," he said quietly. "Tonight, after the reception. I can't do this to you, and I can't marry into people who try to take an old woman's house out from under her." "I'm not an old woman," I said, and for the first time in days I almost laughed. "You know what I mean." I told him not yet, not during the wedding, not in front of 200 guests and a half-eaten shrimp cocktail spread I'd paid for. "Let it happen today," I said. "Let them have their day. I have somewhere else I need them to be tomorrow." He didn't understand what I meant. I didn't explain it. The reception moved into toasts. Francesca stood up first, uninvited, grabbing the microphone from the best man's hand like she'd been planning the moment for weeks. "I just want to say," she said, voice trembling with rehearsed emotion, "that family is about second chances, about forgiveness. I lost so much time with my daughter, and I'm just so grateful that the people in her life understand that some bonds can never truly be replaced, no matter how hard someone might try." Every head at that party turned to look at me. 200 people watching to see if I'd cry or storm out or finally break. I stood up instead, walked to the microphone myself. Francesca's smile flickered just slightly, like she hadn't expected that move. "I'd like to say something too," I said, looking directly at Phoebe. about second chances, about what people do with them when no one's watching. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Before I say anything else, I think everyone deserves to know what was filed at the county recorder's office 2 days ago on my house using my name. The entire backyard went silent. Phoebe's face went white. And that's when my phone, sitting on the table behind me, lit up with a call from Carlos Mendez, a call I told him to only make if something had gone seriously wrong.
I didn't answer the phone. Not yet. 200 people were staring at me, and Carlos Mendez could wait 90 seconds. 2 days ago, I said into the microphone, someone filed paperwork at the Charleston County Recorder's Office attempting to transfer ownership of my house, the one I've owned outright for 11 years. The filing lists Phoebe Andrews as the grantee. Gasps from a few tables. Sebastian's mother actually stood up halfway out of her chair. It also turns out, I continued, that for the last 4 months, money meant for this wedding has been quietly moved into an account belonging to Francesca Reyes. Not vendor payments, not flowers, just transfers, tagged in my own stepdaughter's handwriting. Mom needs this. I looked at Phoebe. She wasn't crying yet. She looked like someone watching a car crash happen to her in slow motion, unable to make her body move. I raised that girl, I said, voice steady, not loud, because I didn't need to be heard anymore. 18 years. Every recital, every broken bone, every tuition check. And 3 weeks after this woman walked back into her life, my own daughter tried to take my house out under me while I was still paying for her wedding. Francesca grabbed the microphone stand, trying to physically take it from me. This is a misunderstanding, everyone. She's clearly upset and confused. I'm not confused, I said, holding firm. I have the bank statements, I have the filing, I have a recorded phone call from a witness who heard you tell my daughter, and I quote, "The wedding's a drop in the bucket, the real money's in her retirement account and the house." The color drained out of Francesca's face so fast it was almost satisfying to watch. That's when I finally answered Carlos Mendez's call, right there at the microphone, on speaker, because at that point I didn't have a single reason left to keep anything private. "Lauren," his voice came through clear over the speakers, "I need you to know we got confirmation back from the recorder's office an hour ago. The forged notary stamp on that quitclaim deed belongs to a notary public who reported her stamp stolen 3 weeks ago. This isn't just fraud, Lauren. This is a felony. We're filing police reports tonight." 200 guests heard every word. Sebastian stood up from the head table, walked over, and took the microphone gently from my hand. "I'm not marrying into this," he said simply, looking at Phoebe, not unkindly, just done. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I'm done." He walked off the dance floor and out the front gate, just like that. Phoebe finally broke, sobbing into her hands at the head table, while Francesca tried and failed to gather the room's sympathy back onto herself. 2 of the groomsmen started quietly boxing up gifts. The DJ, God bless him, just turned the music off entirely and started packing his equipment without being asked. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I walked out of my own backyard, got in my car, and drove to a hotel downtown where I'd already booked a room 3 days earlier, the night I found that first transfer. The police arrested Francesca 2 weeks later on forgery and attempted fraud charges, the stolen notary stamp tracing directly back to her. Phoebe wasn't charged. The DA decided the evidence pointed to Francesca as the architect, but she lost everything else that mattered. Sebastian never spoke to her again. The condo I'd helped her buy, I sold within the month, well within my legal right as the one who still held the note. Phoebe calls sometimes, voicemails I don't return, long apologies about being manipulated, about missing her mom, meaning me, finally, after 22 years of being Lauren. Maybe someday I'll listen all the way through one of those voicemails. Not yet. I kept my house, I kept my business, I kept every dollar I built with my own 2 hands over 26 years. And last month, I sat at a dinner table with people who actually showed up for me. Friends, my staff, a few of Carlos's old construction buddies who never once forgot what I'd done for that family. Table 1, head of the table. Nobody put me there. I just finally sat down where I belonged.